That's interesting. I would say, first of all, Europe has always had stronger ties to the US. Many of the current companies going through an IPO, or many of the large companies merging out of Europe, do have dual presence in Europe and the US, and that's not going to change. Second, what we see is that a lot of European companies have started to serve a growing internal European software market. I would give the example of Doctolib, which is the leading practice management software platform for doctors. It's become a unicorn in Europe, serving only German and French customers. And it's we see the digital transformation that's underpinning a lot of the growth in the US coming to Europe as well. And we can definitely expect more private unicorns and public unicorns serving the European market alone.
Andrei, if I look back through history, of course, Europe has been an industrial powerhouse in many sectors, the German auto industry perhaps being the most famous and prime example of this, also French aerospace, and there are a number of major industries where Europe has led the way in the past. And to what extent could that help those incumbent industries that now are working to improve their processes and reclaim their position as pioneers of their industries? To what extent could that help these European software companies and other digital companies gain clout themselves?
That's a really interesting point, Juliana, and we're seeing the marrying of these two strengths. On one hand, the culture on process improvement in the kind of the traditional industrial settings, as well as the strong R&D expertise that you have, stemming from any of the European universities sprinkled across the continent. One such example is a company called Celonis, which is the leader in process mining in Europe. They enable companies of all sizes to optimize their internal processes. And that company emerged out of an academic project from the Technical University of Munich, working very closely with SAP, as well as with many makers you allude to. And we're seeing more and more of these marriages between traditional European incumbents who try to work more closely with startups to optimize their business, and in turn enable these early young companies to get fuel and grow to a global stage.
Andrei, I noticed in your notes that you've made note of how moving to a fully remote working environment as a result of the pandemic has leveled the playing field between Europe and the US. Why has it leveled the playing field in your view?
Yeah, it's an interesting point where, historically, we've always encouraged many of the European software companies to go to the US to establish a go-to-market presence over there, because traditionally, for every dollar that gets spent in software, 50 cents gets spent in the US. So you cannot really afford ignoring the US market. But that always took some time, right? You have to hire execs on the ground. It takes from months to a year to really set up the company there, and also culturally. It's not always easy to manage a firm that has a cross-continental presence. What's been really interesting lately is that many companies have been more accustomed to buy from software vendors fully remotely, and that makes it very easy to sell via Zoom, right? So you have many European companies who sell just as well as their US peers into very large enterprises. And we will see this playing field continue to be leveled, because these days I don't think it matters where you start from, and neither where you scale. So it's great that European companies have access to a global market much more seamlessly.